Hi, I'm Chef Lou Rice from Performance Food Service Ozarks. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about cross-contamination. Now, when I say cross-contamination in this setting, I'm talking about basically taking something that from one place that's bad and taking it to another place and contaminating it and making it bad. You see here in front of me, I've got a couple cutting boards and I've got a couple things on here. One, I've got some fresh cabbage. The next, I have salmon fillet. So an example of cross-contamination would be if I'm cutting on this salmon and then I use this same knife or these hands to go and start cutting on this cabbage. So you notice I'm just taking something that's a potentially hazardous food in this salmon, and I've touched something that it's going to remain raw. In this case, I'm making a slaw with this. And so now I've taken this raw and touched something fresh. Cross-contamination. And this can happen a number of different ways. As I said, I can do it with a knife. I'm cutting something here, then I go back and I cut that cabbage. The hands is an obvious giveaway as well. I have salmon on my hands. Now I touch the raw product there that's not going to be cooked. Cross-contamination. Another way this may happen is, say I've cut some salmon and now, I've got to prep some salad. So I go to the cooler, I get out my cabbage, I put on the same cutting board, and I start cutting that cabbage. What's that? Cross-contamination. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. And a lot of times I see this with people, we intend to do this. Typically, it's an accident. We forget about one thing, we start doing another thing. So a couple of things we can do. After every single task that we do, we want to make sure to get a clean cutting board. We want to get a clean knife. We want to wash our hands properly. Even if we've been wearing gloves, before we put on a new pair of gloves, we want to wash our hands. So that's one thing. Two, we could work with foods that are raw at certain times of the day. We could say, I'm going to do all my chicken prep, all my fish prep, anything that's raw, pre-noon. After 12 o'clock is when we do our salad prep. So that's another great way to prevent cross-contamination because we're doing things at two completely different times. A third option may be cut down on the things that we're actually going to touch or cut. For example, I could buy a slaw mix instead of cutting my own slaw. So now I take that out of the equation. I can't cross-contaminate it because I'm not going to be cutting it. So just remember, cross-contamination can come in many different ways, whether I'm on a cutting board or wait, I've been cutting that salmon. Someone says, hey, can you go get me something from the cooler? I walk over to the cooler, I open the door with the cooler, contaminated hand. I reach in, I grab something, I bring it out and I hand it to somebody. I've just spread what potentially could be bad bacteria from that product now all through the kitchen. I've put it on the door of the refrigerator. I've done it on a bottle, which I've handed to someone else who now has contaminated hands. So cross-contamination is a big issue in our business when it comes to foodborne illness and food safety. It's one of those things that we seem to make mistakes on a lot, but it's also an easy one to take care of by following the steps that I outlined before. So just make sure anytime we're changing the type of food we're working with, or if we're going to be away from the table for a long time, remember to change that knife, change that cutting board, wash our hands, remove our gloves, get fresh gloves, and we'll keep cross-contamination to a minimum. Thank you.